This project is going to have a couple different things going on. It's going to have a collage in the background on this canvas board, and then it's going to have a cutout that lays over it so that you'll just see the color inside the shape, and I'm going to use a Cricut for that. So I've cut out some strips from a magazine because I'm going to do the collage part with the magazine papers because they're nice and thin, and this is going to be a dinosaur, so I cut out a bunch of different shades of greens and teal, tan, anything that kind of went with that sort of a theme. And if they have pictures or words on them, I thought, well, even better, because then I get a little extra, you know, something different on there. So it's not all a bunch of just solid stripes. This had some trees on it, this had words on it, this one had just some different colors on there of different teal and blue. So I'm going to mix these up and kind of know that my image is going to mostly be in the center of the canvas. So I really don't need to go to the edge, but if I do, that's fine too. But I just cut the strips from the side of the magazine page because I knew that it would reach all the way across my canvas board. And I can trim them when I'm done, or I can just glue a little bit and wrap them around the sides. And that's good too, because then, you know, your sides have a little bit showing and it doesn't just end right there with just a little piece of paper sticking up. So I have Mod Podge poured out into a cup and a foam brush. And remember, if you pour out too much, I wouldn't use the foam brush for this, but you could take a regular brush. You could scoop it up and brush it right back into the bottle. Make sure the lip is really clean before you seal it on, because almost every time when I go to open this thing, if it had just a little bit of glue around the rim, it seals itself shut, and then you have to take scissors and sort of go around and just pop your lid up like this. You don't want to have to cut the bottle, then you can't use it, or you have to put it into something else. But if you just go around the edge and pop the lid up, then it'll loosen it so you can open it if it does seal itself shut. So remember how we do when we're Mod Podging, doing decoupage. I'll just start kind of at the bottom, but you're going to give yourself a little bit of glue, just a thin layer. You don't want to glob it on, and then just enough for that one strip. Seal it on there good so you don't have any bubbles underneath. It'll still wrinkle and you'll still end up with a few little bubbles. And then kind of lightly, with just the same amount, brush right over it. Again, just do it light. Don't brush over it too many times. You start to rip up the paper because it's still soft and it's wet. And then when you're done at the end, you can come around and wrap all your sides around the back. And that's really easy to do. You don't even really need to brush over it. You just put a little bit underneath and then use your finger to seal it on. So let's go and kind of do this randomly. You don't want to do this in a pattern, but kind of put them close together, as close as you can get them without having to see any of the white in the background. Foam brush is nice because you don't always have to brush. You can dab like white out. And the nice thing about doing that is that you won't be ripping up your paper. So if you're just dabbing it on, then you're being gentle with it. And you could do the same when you're going over it if you want. And you could lightly brush. Alright, so I'm going to keep going all the way up. I probably won't put anything right here because I know that's where my cutout's going to go, and I'll explain that later. It'll all make sense. I'm just going to keep grabbing and sticking them down, layering them one right on top of the other. So right now I'm going to get my sticky board prepared, the board that has the paper on it that feeds into the printer and lets me do the shape that I want to do. So I know that I'm going to need to go right up in the corner because the Cricut always cuts from the upper left corner. It always assumes that's where your paper is. So that's where I'm going to put it. Try to get it up there as far as you can in the corner. And then really focus on the edges of this, sticking it down really well. Just press it good and get the center too. Just make sure that there's no little corners sticking up, and there's no way that this is going to pop off when it goes into the machine, because those little feeders are going to roll it and grab it. Sometimes the rubber grippers can move it around if it's not stuck down really well. Okay, so machine is on. and it is set to go. I was saying upper left, and the way I was holding it was not upper left, but this is how it feeds into the machine, and it's, you just kind of use this as your guide. That's where the hanger for the peg hook on the shelf. So I can get it kind of put in position, put it into the machine, just like that. Let me slide things over just a bit so you can kind of see better. But kind of get it in position, set it underneath these little notches on the sides so you know that when you're ready to go and you hit this little arrow button on the machine, it's going to feed it right in and it'll be ready. So I'm going to go to my app now and find the image that I've saved. I've saved it as a PNG, and I just found an image of a Stegosaurus online, and I saved it, and I've already got it to the right size, but I'll show what all that looks like in the app. So you're going to want to go into your Cricut Design app, which is right here. And this is the home page. This is what you're going to see after you've signed in, and I'm already signed in because I go in here and make projects. So you're going to see projects that you can choose and things that other people have already made and uploaded on there. But you're going to go up to right here where it says all categories. You're going to pull that down. And if you've saved any projects from another day, anything that you might have been working on either on the computer or on your phone, they'd be saved in here. So you go to My Projects. It's the top one up here. And these are only things, so what you're seeing right now are only things that are going to be in my Cricut Space app, but you can save any images and it would just be your personal projects that you've saved right in here. So these are all things that I've saved for projects for other days. And I'll be picking the shape that I'm going to use, which is right here. And I'm just, you pick a name for it, so that's how it knows what to call it. Just call it, save it as whatever you want to save it as. And then it's showing what it's going to look like, but you can still customize it. I'm not going to customize it because it's ready to go, but I'll show you what happens when you press the customize option. Because let's say you save this to do on an 8x10 canvas, which is what we're doing today. But maybe you want to do it on a bigger canvas, so you need a bigger Stegosaurus, or maybe you want to do it on a smaller canvas, or whatever. So this lets you just stretch or skew and do what you need to do with it before you hit that print button. So you can tell along the top, it shows you the inches. So the tail of this dinosaur reaches about to the 10-inch mark on the side, and then his feet are somewhere around 6 inches. So if you wanted to, you could click on him and you could use the little, in the bottom left, there's that little arrow that goes up or down, and you can move him around to change the size of him. But I like the size he's at right now, and I've already figured what size canvas I'm going to be using, so he's ready to go. So if he's ready, up in the, or down in the bottom right corner, it says make it. It's the only green button on the bottom. That's what you're going to be pressing. So it's got the little Cricut symbol, and you can press that. It's going to show you what it's going to look like when you print it on your mat. So I've got my paper lined up where it needs to be, and that's fine. I have enough to reach his tail, and then some, so perfect. And if your paper is lined up the way it needs to be, you can go ahead and say continue. And then you want to make sure your machine is paired with your device. So I'm going to hit connect. And at the same time, when you press connect, the power button on your Cricut Maker starts flashing, and when it's ready, it turns blue. So that's how you know it's paired. And it will also, the app will bring you to the next page, which is right here, where you get to select what kind of paper you're cutting on. And in this case, it's cardstock. For any paper or any thin sheets that you might be printing on, even if it's the vinyl or whatever, you're going to just use the regular fine point blade. If you're using something thicker, though, if you slide over here to like the thicker fabrics, felt, faux leather, you want to switch your blade out to the rotary blade. We don't need to do that because it's already loaded with the fine point, so we're good. And then we're going to just select the first one, which is cardstock. And then your machine has an up and down arrow that's flashing, and it's telling you you can go ahead and set up your mat with your paper loaded onto it, press the feed button, and it will start the cutting. So make sure your paper is stuck down really well, press that button, and it will start doing its thing. So I had to press this Cricut button up in the corner here. It's just the C with the little antlers, or whatever they are. And so I went ahead and pressed that so it knew to go ahead and start cutting. I already had it fed through by pressing the little up and down arrow, so it pulled the paper in and it was ready to go. And then pressing this let me know that, okay, it's starting to cut now. can see the shape pretty well, and when it's done, it'll stop. It'll bring it back up to the corner where it started. You can press the feeder button again to get it to come out. It's flashing. It's pretty easy because it'll start flashing and being annoying. It'll let you know, okay, it's time to press this button and get it out, or it's just going to sit in here. And don't ever pull it because you'll be pulling on these little mechanisms in here and you don't want to wear anything out. So press that so it can gently come out, and then you can see your shape on there. It's all, since it's cardstock, it's a little easier to see than when we printed and cut out of the vinyl, so you can see that pretty good. And so let's get the tools we need to pop this off. We can turn the Cricut off because we are done. And we'll use something like this. Actually, I'll show you what you can use that's not this, so we don't have to show, you know, these fancy tools that cost a lot of money. You can use other things. It's an option, but you don't have to have it. All right. Okay, so I brought over some different tools that can be used as an option instead of the expensive Cricut tools here. You don't have to use these. This is just a flat little sharp edge. That's all it is. So you could use scrapers. I got a couple different ones. I got a plastic one and a metal one. You know, as long as they're clean, these are a little rusty, but that's fine. That's not going to come off or anything onto your sticky board. But, you know, wipe them off with a sponge or a, you know, wet cloth. And make sure there's no loose dust on there. You could use something like that. It's the same thing. It's just a little sharp edge. And you can get these at the dollar store. Then I got a couple other things to show that work just as well as, let's say, like the little small scraper. You know, this is a Cricut tool, but you don't have to have this. Yeah, okay, it's nice. It matches your machine. Okay, big deal. But you can use a cake spatula. So if you have something like this, it's just a Wilton cake spatula. It's really thin on the side. Or even a butter knife. I just didn't have one handy here at the studio, so I just grabbed a cake spatula, but that works fine. It's got the bevel here, so it's the same kind of thing. It's got that little bend in there, so it lets you kind of hold it up at an angle without having to lay it flat. So that's fine. You can use something like that. And then the other thing I pulled out was this is just it's a paint knife. So you'd use it if you're, you know, doing some oil painting and you want a little texture. You'd use it to kind of scrape and do your, you know, your snow-capped mountains and things like that. These are real cheap. Sometimes if you buy a multi-pack of brushes, you'll get a few of these, and you think, what am I going to do with that? I don't do oil painting. I only do acrylics. Okay, but you can save it for different things, and this is one of those things you can do with it. So I'll just go ahead and take one of these. I'll take the little dollar store plastic scraper, and I will kind of get up under the paper, very carefully pull this away. And if you need to help it out along the way, just get the scraper under there again. But this is cardstock, it's not really thin, and this is a good shape. The Dinosaur is not, it's not one of those shapes that's hard to get up because it's not, doesn't have a whole lot of small pieces. It's a pretty good shape. So it shouldn't give you any trouble. All right. You've got a cutout too of a dinosaur, which you could do something else with if you want to save that. I wouldn't throw that away just yet because you can always maybe spray a little bit of sticky adhesive on the back of it, something removable, like a removable adhesive spray. You spray that on there, you know, of course, peel them off the mat first. And you can stick them down onto a canvas and he can become some type of stencil or something. So save him, you know, maybe peel them off carefully, put him in a bag of other things that can be used on another day. So let's bring back our canvas board, shove all that out of the way. So here's our canvas board, and I'm thinking, let's see if this is going to be the top or bottom. I guess it doesn't matter. This will give you an idea of where he's going to be. Okay, so I got him lined up where I want him to be. Forgot that the Cricut does a thing where it's trying to save you paper. So even though we started with our dinosaur pretty much centered with, you know, like 1.5 inches on both sides, give or take, the machine just bumped it up to the top trying to save me paper. So that is not actually how I wanted it to print. I didn't want it to be right up at the top because that's not what I wanted on my canvas, but I just cut the bottom off and we'll just use that up at the top to cover over that last little bit that didn't get done. So we'll trim the extra off later after it's all done. But let's bring back our Mod Podge. So I still have the same Mod Podge here in the bowl. As long as you're, you know, working within the same hour or two, your Mod Podge isn't going to dry up. It'll be good. So let's just brush some along the top so we can do that little strip of our little extra kind of messed up there. And your paper will sometimes get a little wiggly, you know, because you're getting it wet, so don't let that bother you. That's just what it does. course, it's a little longer because it's not the exact size we need it to be. So maybe you want to try to get it even on one side, and then your other side, we can just trim that up later. Okay. And then make sure it lines up perfectly so that it doesn't show. I don't know if this was a gift for somebody. No, it's trying to make it really nice. I would start over. I cut it again. But it's not, so I won't worry about it. Alright, so now on the back, I'm just going to kind of brush this way away from the cutout pieces, because I don't want to brush that way. It would be like brushing your hair backwards from the bottom up. You would tangle it, and on this, you would tear the pieces. They wouldn't get wrinkled. So I'm just brushing upward like this, just to be careful with them so they don't get messed up. If you can let it get too sticky on the back and let it stick itself down, you might have some problems, because if it gets too wet and you put too much of a big glob of glue on there, then what's going to happen is it's going to stick, and then you're going to have some black paper kind of left behind on your nice green stripes. So the cool thing is, when you were in my app with me, saw that I had all those other shapes. You know, I had a unicorn, giraffe, something else, shark. So all of those could have different colors, you know, as the stripe collage in the background. So, you know, if you want to do several different ones of these, you could have a bunch of blue stripes, can be your shark, or a bunch of gray, or whatever you want. So I was just thinking blue, like the ocean. Maybe let the unicorn, find some pretty pastel colors if you're going through a magazine, and you can use that. So I'm just going to put this down for now, but I do need to peel it up and go back over some of those spots. But, you know, it lets you use a bunch of different colors, and maybe the giraffe, use some browns or yellows and stuff like that. So save all your magazines, save ads that come in the mail. I get newsletters and stuff, and I save those or have people save them for me, so that, oh, there you go, dries pretty quick if it's thin. You want it to be thin, you know, because you don't want it to get too wet and start to ripple, but it does dry fast if you don't work with it quick. But yeah, you get those little mailers all the time. Save all that stuff, because it's nice, thin, high quality, glossy paper, and you can use it for a collage project. And, you know, if it has pretty pictures in there, it's got nice colors, that's paper you don't have to go out and buy. You know, those rolls of vinyl for the Cricut can get pretty expensive. I know they have a lot of nice patterns, but you can find nice patterns in magazines too. And especially if you want like greens and blues, there seems to be a lot of greens and blues in magazines. So you can find that pretty easy. And I'm just dabbing it on. Notice I'm not brushing, because I'm afraid that if I do start brushing, since it's still a little tacky from before, I'm going to start to rip up the thin magazine paper. I don't want to do that. Alright, and I'm going to brush over the whole thing anyway, so it's okay if it's getting on top. I know I'm kind of getting fingerprints everywhere, and that's fine. Just as long as it's all stuck down really well. Get under this last little bit here. Okay, we'll go around and trim it up. If this was a unicorn one, I'd probably throw some glitter on too. You know, when the whole thing was done, right over the top, I'd put some glamour dust on there. Don't think it's really going to go with my dinosaur though, so I'm not going to do that. Alright. Okay, brush over the whole thing just to give it that nice, even, glossy finish, and to cover up your fingerprints wherever those were. And remember, any extra glue that's still in the bowl, save it, get a nice brush, a wide brush, scoop it all up, and put it right back in the bottle. Okay, it doesn't look bad at all up at the top where I had to do that little patch job. That's fine. Came out okay. Can barely tell. Okay. Yeah, this would look really cool if I was doing it with a unicorn. I could put some glitter on here. Okay. And also you want to make sure that whatever paper you use, you don't have to use black paper, but you want to find something that has a nice contrast with whatever color you have in your background, so your stripes. Most of the time I think black would look fine. I think you'd want to choose a color though. You wouldn't really want to just do white, but you could if you wanted to. Maybe for the unicorn, you know, pick something that kind of goes well with, like a light pink or something like purple that goes with unicorns. Or if you have a sparkly gold, they have some nice sparkly gold papers. If you look in the scrapbook section, you can just buy one piece, and it's like 59 cents. And you could buy a piece of sparkly gold paper, and that'd be really cool for your outline of the unicorn. And then underneath, you've got your pastel stripes and the shape of the unicorn. I know it looks a little weird and hard to tell what's going on right now because we have all that Mod Podge showing, but dries up fast, and you won't see that bluish white look on there. I'm just going to trim the sides here and get the extra off. Just like that. That'll also let you know if you need to go back and put any more glue anywhere, because it'll let you see if you have some pieces sticking up. Okay, top side is probably pretty good, and we did good without wasting a whole lot of paper. We just have a tiny bit left, and you can go over some of these little areas, like your corners, to even it out. And it's starting to look really cool as it's starting to dry. It's hard to tell in this one little corner because you've got a lot of glue up there. So I just blew this dry a little bit just to make sure I could handle it. It wasn't too sticky. And I remembered that I did one strip of paper here, had the Geico lizard on there, so you can kind of see his eyeball, maybe read some words on there. I thought that was kind of funny. But you can't tell me something like this wouldn't be awesome as some wall art in a kid's bedroom. That is really cool.